If you're thinking about possible careers and wondering what it's like working in private equity, I've got you covered. In this video, I'm going to go over the three main job titles in private equity, what they are, and what a day in the life of each would generally look like. And at the end of this video, I'll share my best tip for getting your foot in the door at one of these funds. Okay, in the world of private equity, there are three main job types. There is the investing team, there's the operating team, and there's the support staff. Let's talk about the support staff first. So this includes executive assistants, CFOs, and investor relations primarily. There could be some other roles in there as well, but generally those are the three main types of roles. So executive assistants spend their days supporting the investing and operating teams, scheduling appointments, flights, managing their schedule, bringing in lunch, like whatever they need to do. Here's the thing too about executive assistants in private equity. They can actually make quite a bit of money. So I had a friend who went and started in private equity, and his wife was working at the same private equity fund as he was as an executive assistant. And here's the funny thing, they actually made the same amount of money and got the same bonus. She was like super busy managing the schedule of these partners in the private equity firm and doing just as much work, albeit different work, than her husband, who was more on the investing side, which we'll get to in terms of what he was doing. But just because you're an executive assistant doesn't mean you can't make bank in that role. All right. The other two roles, let's talk about CFOs. So the CFO is responsible for managing the finances of the fund, right? Just like a CFO of any sort of company. So they're keeping track of all the portfolio companies, how much those portfolio companies are worth, when funds come in and out. They're responsible for tracking those funds, generating the reports for the financial statements, et cetera, reporting to the investors. It's very similar to being a CFO at a company in a lot of ways, except for you have the nuances of private equity. And frankly, it can be a very rewarding and very lucrative career pathway for people, especially if like you are in accounting and you think, hey, I want to someday be a CFO, but I also love private equity. Being a CFO of a private equity fund can actually be an interesting career route. And then the last one to talk about is investor relations. So with investor relations, not every private equity fund will have a dedicated person to investor relations, but they're becoming more and more common. And their job is to basically report to the investors, the limited partners, and to fundraise, to go out, meet with potential investors, and sell the fund to them and convince them to invest. It's a very people person kind of role, and also one where you can make a lot of money. There are a lot of investor relations people that will make a percentage of the total funds that they raise. And so if you're helping raise a fund, and help raise billions of dollars, like even if it's a small percentage of that, like it can be very lucrative and a great career field, especially if you like private equity, but maybe you don't want to be in the weeds of building financial models. What you really love is meeting with people and being in more of a sales environment. Investor relations can be a great field. The other thing is you don't need a lot of experience in investor relations oftentimes to get started, right? They're just looking for people that are hungry, personable, just like in sales, right? Like lots of people can start in sales. And it's very similar with investor relations. All right, so the next group of people is the operating team. Now, these are the people that actually roll up their sleeves and help the portfolio companies. They usually have deep expertise in some area of company operations. Maybe they're a really experienced CFO, or maybe they're a really good operator and have a ton of experience helping manufacturing companies. It could be a lot of different things depending on the strategy of the private equity fund. But the main idea is that these operating partners are going in and they're helping the company perform better. They're increasing revenues, they're decreasing costs, they're helping hire people, fire people, whatever it takes to help the company be healthy and grow and generate strong profits for the investment team. Here's the dirty little secret about operating partners is that they typically don't get the same level of respect as the investing team. I honestly don't know why that's the case, because they're the ones like, in the trenches making these companies successful, but it's something you should be aware of. Now, not every private equity fund treats the operating partners as like second-class citizens. Some, they're equal. And if you want to work as an operating partner, that's probably the type of firm that I would go work for. The other thing with being an operating partner is it's really not something for entry-level people to jump into typically. Usually these are people that have 2 decades of experience operating within an industry. and they are pulled in. Now, in that light, it can be a great like second act to your career where you've built a ton of expertise helping companies grow and be successful, and now you can hop into the private equity side, and you can do that with lots of companies and be in a slightly lower stress environment. All right, and then let's talk about the investment team. Because honestly, when people think about working in private equity, they're thinking about working for the investment team, not necessarily on the operating team or on the support team. So within the investment team, you've got multiple levels. You have analysts, associates, VPs, principals, and then partners. Now, analysts are responsible for sourcing investment opportunities, i.e., they are on the phone calling CEOs, vetting deals, going to conferences, those types of things. They also will spend a decent amount of their time building financial models and doing kind of base level due diligence work. You also have associates who are kind of one step up from analysts. They do some deal sourcing, but they also spend a lot of their time actually doing due diligence. Next group is VPs, vice presidents, or principals. I mean, every firm kind of has their own jargon there. But these are the individuals that are kind of quarterbacking the diligence process, and they support in the deal structuring. So when I say deal structuring, what I mean by that is in a private equity deal, you're going to use equity and you're going to use debt. And sometimes you're going to use debt from multiple sources, right? So like maybe you get a bank that will provide senior debt and you have a fund that will provide mezz debt, right? It just kind of depends. And so the VP and principal will be involved typically in helping structure all of that, right? They'll figure out what bank provider they want to use, what mezz fund they want to use, how much equity, like all of those different things. They're also ensuring that the analysts and associates are doing a good job, like preparing the due diligence and that everything's kind of rounded out there. They really are kind of like the quarterback of the deal. And then the last is the partner. And the partner is person or people that lead the firm. So they're responsible for typically sourcing deals as well. I mean, everybody is responsible for sourcing, structuring deals, arranging financing, fundraising, and just generally seeing the overall day-to-day operations of the fund. The big thing, though, is that the partners have what's called the fiduciary responsibility of making investment decisions. Now, every role has this fiduciary responsibility, and that fiduciary responsibility, simply put, is they have an obligation to their investors to do their best job making their investments with their money, right? That's what it means. And so with the partner, like the buck kind of stops with them, if you will, and they have to approve the different investments that go through. So that's kind of the most critical part of what they do. But then as part of that, they're doing all of these other things, right? Like I talked about, they're helping source deals, they're sitting on boards, they're helping companies, they're helping structure deals, they're ensuring the diligence is done properly, they're hiring and firing analysts and associates and promoting VPs and kind of all those day-to-day things. They kind of oversee the fund. So here's the thing. Most people just think about the investing jobs, but working as a CFO at a fund or on the operating team can be very fulfilling and a lucrative career and very much worth exploring. Here's the thing. Like I said earlier, sometimes the operating team and sometimes the support team don't get quite the love that the investing team does, which makes them super open to talking to people in many cases. Try reaching out to some of the people and just ask them what their day in their life is like and see, maybe it is a career that you want to explore. Worst case is you've now built another connection at the firm that can be a support to you. And this brings me to one of my pieces of advice for you that doesn't really have to do necessarily with getting a job in private equity, but hopefully is helpful throughout the rest of your career. And that is, a lot of people are really good at managing up, right? They're very good at building relationships with their boss and the people that matter above them, right? But very few people take the time to manage below. In other words, take time to build relationships with the support staff, right? This is like being kind to the janitor and building a good relationship with him or her, right? If you can do that, you can actually build incredible networks that might surprise you in terms of the amount of connections, support, and opportunities they bring to you over time. Plus, you just never know where people are going to be. That analyst that you might engage with today might become the partner of a fund that you want to work for someday. All right, so hopefully now you have a better understanding of what a job in private equity is like. It's a lot more nuanced than maybe you thought. Hopefully that was helpful. If you want to explore more about getting a job in this industry, check out my next video where we're going to talk about how to get an internship in venture capital.